thanks for coming along. I'd like to welcome to the stage our wonderful panel this morning. We have Lauren Dawber, who's the Senior Director of Media Ops and Performance at Optus. We have Kate Hensley, the GM of Marketing, E-commerce and Digital for Nivea. Heather McGovern, the Chief Marketing Officer at Domain, and then the glamorous Emily Spinks, who's the Global Performance Marketing Manager for Camilla. Cool. So we're going to kick off, and I think I'm taking this one. We're going to kick off and we're going to have a little look at some of the content pieces that these amazing brands have been delivering in market. You know, that we've got a wonderful mix of different categories here today, which is going to be really interesting just to see how the vast application of video comes to life. So we'll kick off. I think we have, Kate, I think you're up first, so we'll have a little look at your latest piece.
Yeah, sure.
It would be great if you could give us a little bit of a background around, you know, the role that video plays in your business and kind of where you see the growth and investment over the next 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of points on the video I shared, and the reason I chose that one is it really gives a little bit of a local nuance to a global brand. So we had to be very strict in terms of abiding by our global brand guidelines, but also for the launch into our My Seller category, find something that would really resonate with a local audience. And we obviously are a very iconic brand, so bringing one of the most iconic faces in Australia, which is Luna Park, to do something a little bit different in terms of gaining attention and attraction. And that was really one of our most successful assets or video assets last year in 2024. So a really fun one, while you're also then being true to the respect of the brand as well. In terms of the future of video and where I see that for us as a brand, we are a very highly scaled brand. We're in 7 out of 10 million homes in Australia. So for us, it's very, very important that we abide by making sure that we deliver on the reach that we require for a brand of such scale. And so for me, it's always looking at how we deliver that. Some things like 6 seconds are very important for us in terms of how we deliver on that reach, as well as playing to areas like for audiences that are harder to reach, males under 30s, looking in contextually relevant areas. So that could be areas like gaming, where we have experimented and had a lot of success over the last couple of years.
Lovely, thank you. So our next piece is from the wonderful Optus brand. If I can click that. I love this ad.
Now, repeat after me. I will slay the day. My outfit is always fire. I am worthy of a modem that connects up to 128 devices.
So they're brilliant, and I would love to hear from you, like the role that video is playing in a brand like Optus and how you're using those formats.
So firstly, Nana Jude was a scream to film with. She was absolutely awesome. But for us, the focus here was really about building platform intentional work. So we had really focused on, in this instance, TikTok. And I think what was great is on the day, we added kind of an additional shoot day to capture some specific kind of fit for format content. And what was really different about the day for us is we had our in-house kind of biddable director at the shoot looking at how is this actually going to look when it came into platform? How is it going to capture attention in the first couple of seconds? How are we going to optimize? So I think having the person who's executing kind of your digital video strategy there on production day, helping to really make the most of the content, was something that was really different for us and not kind of something that we're now kind of taking forward into a lot of our kind of video shoots, which is awesome. For us, it's all about how do we kind of use that video neutral planning approach, making sure that we're driving incrementality, looking for kind of where are we going to get that next best cost-efficient reach, but also managing the fragmentation and also the excitement as well. Like I think for us, we have, you know, a really strong media agency and also a great in-house team. And it's working out where do we spend that kind of dollar next. And sometimes, you know, you have a very excitable team that want to test and learn new things, but how do we make sure we do that while finding efficiency? Otherwise, we can, you know, fall into that trap of doing too many things with not enough scale behind them. And, you know, we're massive believers in MMM and that kind of cross-channel measurement. So we need to make sure that whatever it is that we're kind of designing for video can then be measured in a really robust way so we can be confident in the kind of testing and experiments that we're doing. So, yeah, focusing on fit-for-platform content that drives that creative multiplier and those enhanced results, which is absolutely what we saw here. So the creative kind of TV cut-downs, this performed about 5 times stronger than the kind of TVC cut-downs, which I think is great for proving that creative multiplier and making sure you've got really fit-for-format intentional creative is worth the extra effort and the extra shoot day and all of those kind of additional costs that come with that.
Yeah, beautiful. On to our next one. Jen, are you driving this one?
What are you doing?
Got to stay up all night and keep an eye on all the properties we're looking at.
Babe, these are really bad for you.
I know, but I feel amazing. Look at this, I've organized these tabs by price from low to high. But on this browser, I've got them listed from high to low in terms of, you know, how many bedrooms there are. I just got to make sure that there's at least 2 bathrooms, right?
Never miss a listing update with property alerts. Download the Domain app. Know what we know.
So Heather, this one is, I mean, I think anyone who's bought a house or looked for a new place to live recently can probably relate to that feeling. But yeah, tell us about what that means for Domain and kind of the role that video is playing in your business over the next 12 months.
Video for us plays an intrinsic role across the whole of the property life cycle, basically. What you've seen there are our sort of flagship brand ads that are intended to be able to differentiate ourselves from our key competitor, REA, and create standout and memorability and salience and all of those wonderful things. But beyond, I guess, the brand perspectives, we also use content and video content in particular in a really meaningful way. It's about understanding where our customers are on that property journey. Are they thinking about selling? Are they thinking about buying? Are they just dreaming and interested in what's happening in the market at the moment? Are they looking at renting? So how do we provide video content at the right time, in the right place, that helps them as part of that journey, connects them to Domain, and eases them through what is a pretty complicated, overwhelming process most of the time. So we use video pretty much across the whole of the funnel and try and tailor that in very meaningful, relevant, connected ways, tell human stories in doing so, but throughout the whole process making sure that there's a strong connection to brand and that each of those executions are helping to build our brand.
Yeah, fabulous. And finally,
my latest fashion love child is about seeing styling and making fabulous entrances, darlings.
Welcome to a world where the White Lotus meets Camilla, an intriguing realm of dark stories and secrets.
There's more than enough drama to go around.
Discover the ready-to-wear and resort collection at Camilla.com.
so Emily, amazing, glamorous brand. Tell us the role of video, because it must be so important for your business to storytell in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, as a very creative business, and also, I guess we have quite a niche customer, so a customer that is quite, more of a premium customer, higher AOV. So that video in particular was a part of our White Lotus collaboration. So as you can imagine, when we're collaborating with something like White Lotus, it's quite a niche audience that you're going after. It's not kind of for the entire addressable market of Australia. So it was about tapping into that niche market using channels like SVOD were really great, we used Binge for that particular campaign to tap into that White Lotus, the series customer there. But for us, video plays a really important role on our media plan across every layer of the funnel. So we use these branding, like we would call that video a campaign video, those branding or campaign videos to immerse the customer in the brand. And then as you come further down the funnel, we start to look at more product-led videos that focus on the details of the fabric, how it feels to wear a Camilla, how the fabric flows. And so I guess just further down the funnel, it's just about kind of immersing the customer in what it's like to wear a Camilla piece. So yeah, in terms of the activation, there's really quite a few media channels that we're activating from a video perspective, just based off where the customer is in that purchase journey.
Yeah, amazing. Well, look, before we carry on, I just wanted to highlight the end of this session, there won't actually be audience questions, but there is Slido. So you've got the details there. If anyone does have questions for this panel at the end, please use that. I might come and sit down, but if this is working, yes, perfect. I wanted to stay on the theme with you, Emily, and just in terms of, and obviously, when you think about a brand like Camilla, you know, research is showing the effectiveness of that impact that those successful stories can have through your brand. So how are you adapting those creative strategies? Obviously, this was a really great example of the White Lotus integration, but you know, what the different formats mean to you? You mentioned about the different stages of the funnel. Like, how does that come to life?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's firstly about understanding where the customer is in the purchase journey. We have quite a long path to conversion, with the product being quite, you know, expensive. So at that top of funnel, we really lay the foundation of the brand and immerse the customer in the story of the collection and the story of the brand with that top of funnel piece that we use across channels like YouTube. We have quite a large investment, and then SWOT as well. We've been playing in Digital Out of Home has landed on its media plan from a video perspective this financial year too. But what we did start to see, so if we rewind 4 years ago, it's kind of that brand campaign storytelling piece that was used at every layer of the funnel. And what we started to see was we started to introduce some more product-led content, and we're seeing that the view-through rate is super high on those brand stories. We got rid of non-skippable video because the customer was choosing to watch our videos, which was fantastic. But as they start to show purchase intent, we saw that really strong view-through rate actually started to come down, and that started to flip to those product-led videos. So we realised that the customer is obviously looking for more information, like I said, about how the fabric flows, how it feels to wear the piece. And so that's when we start to play into those product-led videos, focusing on categories. So for those who don't know, Camilla did start as a resort brand, but now we have ventured into a lot of occasion wear. There's also coats, jackets, and layers. And we are global as well. So when we're playing in Northern Southern Hemisphere, different seasons, we use those product-led videos to really tailor the different categories. Even at certain points throughout the year, particularly in the US, where there's stark differences in climate on the East Coast and the West Coast, we lead into those product-led videos to focus on, you know, dresses for Miami versus jackets and layers moving into somewhere like New York. So yeah, I guess it's just about understanding where the customer is at the purchase journey, and also what collection we're working in. So this financial year we did play in some new media channels like cinema. So for a fashion brand, it's not necessarily the type of medium that a lot of the brands are going after. But we had a Wicked collaboration. So it's when things like that come up that we can be a bit creative with what media channels we're activating. And so we ran Wicked advertising in all of or cinema advertising in all of the pre-screenings of Wicked across New South Wales. So I think it's just about, understanding the niche of customer we're going after, what mediums are going to be the most relevant, because that's not always going to be YouTube or paid social. You know, cinema might be the most relevant, and for this it was. So yeah, I think it's just understanding where they're at in the purchase journey and what medium's going to be most effective.
Yeah, amazing. And so a niche brand where it really clearly articulates the targeting and kind of going into your key audience segments are delivering those results for you. So yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to throw it to Kate now. So Nivea is obviously, you know, as we talked about before, such an iconic brand in so many households, and you know, you've got to bring that meaning and value to your customers on a significant scale. So, you know, with increasing fragmentation in audience consumption for you, I mean, you touched briefly on, you know, the gaming and kind of young male segment. You know, how are you starting to tailor that video content to start to engage those different audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, as I mentioned before, we're in 7 out of 10 million homes across Australia. So we have the scale. We're an incredibly healthy brand, very, very strong in terms of brand love. So for me, I always say we're starting at a position of strength because people do love the brand. So to remember that. And then coupled that with a really simple philosophy, and the philosophy that we use is based on precision marketing. And so when you boil that down, it's really about right time, right place, right message, right platform, right duration, right format. And when we bring everything back to that philosophy, also coupled with what is the actual objective we are trying to achieve in terms of where in the funnel is our challenge, then we can be very, very single-minded in terms of what the job to be done is. And that runs then through the entire team. And the way we're set up as a team at Nivea is a full funnel team. So under my leadership is sitting brand, digital, and also e-commerce. So we can really operate at that true full funnel level in terms of expertise, and then how we learn and deliver every day. So if we've got a really strong philosophy and integrated team, then we can make really good decisions about how we play with our assets in terms of video in particular. And then for me, it's really about how we test and optimise to really make sure that we can take those learnings to make sure that, you know, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever we're doing, that we really are delivering on the best possible outcomes and ensuring that we have those audience learnings that make sure, even though when there is fragmentation, that we're making those quick decisions that are evidence-based to make sure that we can deliver on the scale that the brand deserves.
Yeah, amazing. So kind of continuing into, I guess, the fragmentation of and the use case of video, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how some of the brands are balancing brand building versus performance kind of outcomes. So especially when you're trying to drive those short-term and long-term goals. So I was going to throw to both yourself, Lauren, and Heather. Maybe we'll start with Lauren.
So I've stolen this phrase from a great Kantar paper. And that's, I think our belief is that branding has to perform and performance has to brand. I don't think we have the luxury, due to kind of that collapsing of the mid-funnel almost and the rising of kind of entertainment and e-commerce, to be so single-minded and kind of, you know, continuously have this debate about brand versus performance. I think, you know, it needs to do both, and it needs to do both really well. But what we need to make sure is that we're measuring really single-mindedly off the back of that. So not trying to measure, you know, 5 or 6 KPIs from this one piece of creative or this one stream of video activity. What is the single-minded metric that ultimately is linked back to our commercial goals that we can take to, you know, Exco, etc., and talk about the success of that activity. It's really important that digital media teams and our media agency are really into the details of the metrics. But for us, it comes back to, did this activity have an impact on, you know, increasing our commercial goals? And ultimately bringing everything back to that, which kind of links back to my fragmentation point before, making sure that we've got that robustness of data, that we're spending, you know, enough behind a channel or a platform to get a really kind of reliable result that we can be confident of, to be able to report back the impact. But yeah, I think you have to do both. I think everyone's budgets are under pressure, and, you know, most people's budgets are shrinking. So yeah, got to make sure you're focused on branding and performance in, you know, in equal measure.
Yeah, thank you. And Heather, from your side of things.
I quite like your quote, by the way. I absolutely think it's not an or, it's an and it has to do both. Video effectively is a tool that we can use at all those layers of the funnel, and you need to adapt and understand how to best use it at those layers of the funnel, whether it comes from talent, whether it comes from duration, whether it comes from placement overall. It's not a one-shot deal. We use video, as you saw, from a brand building perspective, but yes, brand does drive short-term results as well. Also within the content space, social space, to connect, engage, and pull people through that middle funnel, and then right down to the performance space when it comes to individual properties, promote individual properties to drive sales and volumes off the back of that as well. So it's comprehensive across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see now video playing that.
Like 5 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, love that quote, brand needs to perform. Excellent. So I guess sticking with yourself, Lauren, like given obviously Optus sits at kind of that intersection of content, media and customer experience, how are you navigating fragmentation of video and TV measurement? Because I know measurement is a big topic that probably everyone in this room has questions on. And I guess what impact does that have on how you elevate success across those single-minded business goals that you were talking about?
I think we're experimenting when it comes to measurement. I'd love to say, oh, we've got it down perfectly. This year what we've done is looked at, there's so much kind of new measurement, metrics and partners coming up in the video space, which I think is fantastic for the industry. So this year we've kind of continued a partnership with Samba, which is helping us understand incrementality, and we're looking at that across other channels into social now, which is really interesting. And we've partnered with Agile, which has been really useful for us, and kind of live dashboards across, most of the media and marketing team at Optus to look at in real time what is happening across the video landscape, what are our competitors doing, how can we respond kind of, really agile to that kind of competitive threat that, exists every day across a category like telco. And then I think the other thing that is fantastic, and this was touched on in the research, is the work that VOZ are doing as well. I think it's great to have that parity, those universal metrics, because it's a little bit of a minefield out there when it comes to metrics. We're measuring some things on 2 seconds, 1 second, 5 seconds, completion of a 15-second ad. And I think that's hard for media buyers and planners. You've got to read the little asterisk down the bottom that says this is measured on 2 seconds. And it's really hard for marketers as well. We don't have time to kind of get into the minutiae of all of the different metrics across all the platforms. So I think, Netflix kind of coming into VOZ, I think is a great statement of kind of having that parity and that equality when it comes to video metrics. And I know that's what I'm looking for. Like, I want something that is externally kind of validated, not marking your own homework, something you can talk to really confidently, and that presents that kind of universal metric across what is a very complex and fragmented industry and kind of set of channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, measurement's such a big area, and the fact that it's great to hear, a brand like Optus still, it's still an evolving piece. It's not just we'll solve the problem and it will continue, because it's such a ever-moving environment as well. So, Kate, I'd like to throw back to you in terms of sticking on that measurement theme. Given videos playing that increasingly full funnel role, and how you're using metrics to evaluate success, what's the role that CMM is playing in that space for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course we have our traditional metrics, or our framework metrics, that we're going to measure every single day, whether it's reach or sales or ROI, on top of the brand metrics that we would be looking at in terms of recall, intent, etc. But for me, what complements that very, very, very well is CMM, so commercial mix modelling. And we've done that for over 5 years now. And so there's a really good bank of data there. And it's not just about analysing what we've done and having those very, very good conversations that you can then take to the C-suite to have an evidence-based approach to what you're doing in marketing. But for me, the magic really comes alive when you use that data to do predictive modelling. And so already, how can we build what might happen in the future to actually work out where we should invest, how we should invest, what formats, and then really optimise based on that scenario modelling what the next 1, 2, 3 years may look like in terms of how that evolution may be when you're coupling that with, intense macro impacts or other things like audience fragmentation. At least we can take some kind of future view on what that may look like and be a little bit more confident at the decisions we're taking, and then the framework we can work within, and then how you apply that back to the framework of measurement that you're using every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Emily, from your end of the spectrum, being, from a mass brand to a niche brand, like what role does kind of that measurement and MMM play for you?
Yeah, so it's a bit of an interesting one for us because our budgets are much leaner than I'm sure Nivea's. So for us, MMM isn't something we've been able to employ at the moment. But in terms of, I guess it just means we need to get creative internally with any internal measurement tools that we're using. So looking at things like taking our spend and our RFM customer segments as well, and understanding, the lag to purchase after a big spike in spend to those different internal customer segments. And also just getting creative on what we're looking to achieve or what we were looking to achieve and what impact that had. So going back to something like the cinema advertising, for example, we started to look at not just whether, so it was just in New South Wales that we ran that advertising campaign. So we started to look at whether there wasn't just a customer uplift in those markets where we had the cinema advertising, but whether the new customer contributed to a higher percentage of sales in those suburbs or postcodes where we ran the advertising. So we were kind of able to go back to the board and say, yes, we saw an uplift to Wicked Collection sales in these suburbs, but we knew that the objective of that campaign was to bring in new customers to the brand. So we also saw new customers drive a higher percentage of sales during that period of time. So I think it's just about kind of for us matching back what the initial objective was of the campaign and then tying that into metrics that we're able to see based off our first party and internal data. But our RFM segments are a huge piece to that in terms of loyal customers or customers that are likely to, defective customers, and understanding any changes in those RFM segments. But yeah, it all comes back to just internal data for us at the moment.
Which I think is great, and it really, something like that as targeted as you went, really gave you that opportunity to kind of drill into it and have that control over outcomes. So that's really cool. So kind of wanted to come to the last little area of our session today, and I really wanted to throw firstly to you, Heather. So thinking of video and the vastness and kind of the maturity of the landscape these days, if you could change one thing about the current digital video landscape and add opportunities in the next 12 months, what would it be and why?
Magic wand it.
Yeah, have you got one? That would be great.
I'm really passionate about data and measurement overall, and a bit like the other guys, we've invested heavily in an MMM, but having that more ubiquitous measurement system across, like independent measurement system, would be amazing. Yeah.
Get the wand. There we go. How about you, Kate?
Yeah, I think for me, a continuation of measurement, but looking at it from a full funnel perspective, and how do we optimise that to have a true understanding about what that can deliver for us commercially. That's my wish.
Yeah. And for yourself?
I'm sticking on the data theme as well. I think clean, granular data flow from publishers into models. I'd love our media agency to spend a lot less time kind of sifting through thousands of lines of data. I think there has to be an easier way to get data from publishers into models.
Yeah, absolutely. And for yourself, Emily?
Yeah, I would say deduplication of reach and frequency across platforms would be amazing. I'm, working with a leaner budget and working across so many different media channels, from digital out of home, YouTube, in-stream video and premium publications, and we know that there's a formula to showing them a brand and storytelling piece followed up by certain product and category-led videos. So being able to control that sequential, where we can do that within something like YouTube, but being able to control that across platforms would be, amazing. That would be my one wish.
That's the dream. Yeah. Perfect. Well, look, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's really interesting kind of areas, and the measurement piece seems to be the ubiquitous area for you all, as it is, I think, for many people in this room. But I did want to throw over to JJ if there's any questions on Slido for you to call.
There are actually quite a few, and to be honest, there's a lot around measurement frameworks. I know you've touched upon it, but one that's heavily upweighted, I feel obliged to pop in, is with regards to And this is an allegedly, according to the person answering the question, and Nat may have a different opinion, disclaimer, in terms of considering that media mix modelling can tend to favour traditional media formats, i.e. radio, etc. What's the best way to, how are you working on refining those frameworks to get closer and closer to what you see as the truth?
I think for us it comes down to your model overall, and basically making sure that you're calibrating that model with back tests, you're calibrating that model with independent sources of truth. So we would do a calibration with Google, we'll do a calibration with Meta, we'll do a calibration with a universal control that we've got on, say, a personalised marketing perspective. So we constantly try to calibrate that market mix model towards those sources of truth, and it's not a set and forget and think, okay, we've built it, job done.
Yeah, you just can't get away from rolling up the sleeves and
No,
getting your hands dirty.
It's an active management overall, and constantly stress testing and putting in those lift tests as well.
Yeah. Anyone else to add to that?
Yeah, I might add to that. Just building on what you said in terms of CMM, for us, I think because we've got so many years of data, I don't necessarily seeing it favour that traditional part. And I think that also comes from testing, and so we wouldn't test something more than maybe a 20% change. So make that small change, see what the outcome is, and remeasure, and we have the luxury to do that. And so then you're obviously keeping on evolving in terms of what those learnings look like.
All right, well, I think give the panellists and Vikki a big round of applause.